for staying on the desk. Now, the National Identification Authority says it is extending registration exercise in the East municipality for 2 more days. This follows the expiration of the original dates, which is today. The registration exercise has been fraught with delays in printing and distribution of cards, but the authority says it has resolved those challenges. So why the need to extend the exercise 2 more days in that area? What difference would that make? I've been joined in the studio by ACI Francis Palmdeti, who is Head of Corporate Affairs at the National Identification Authority. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So originally, today would have been the deadline, but you've extended.
That's correct.
Let's talk about why.
We usually would look at the peculiar situation on the ground with respect to the areas we are registering at. And we've also worked very closely with the Ghana East Municipal Assembly, the assemblymen, etc. And we've had calls from them that we should extend the period for a couple of days because they've realized that the numbers have peaked, have actually increased towards the latter part of the registration, and they plead that we should give them some more days to have members of their or residents of Ghana East have the opportunity to register. We've also looked at our numbers, and we think that extending 2 more days should be fine, and it shouldn't affect us in any adverse way.
How long have you been in this particular municipality for?
For 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks.
Today will be the 3rd week.
So okay. So and what's been turnouts like for the past 3 weeks? Have people really shown interest? Are people registering? What figure have you recorded so far?
The first week, I would say, was a bit slow, but it started picking up after the first week, and it's been, rising since then. We've registered in excess of 120,000 in the municipality. We know once we've added 2 more days, that number would increase. And this number I'm giving you was as at middle of last week. I did not have the current figures for as at Friday. But I think by the time we leave Ghana East, we should be hitting somewhere 140,000.
Okay. Was that the figure that you were hoping to register at the very beginning?
We were hoping to register
estimated figure?
At least 130,000. That should be 80% of the residents in Ghana East.
Okay.
And so we are hitting our target, but I believe we'll go beyond the target considering that we've added 2 more days.
Okay. So what kind of schedule are you running now, especially because of this extension?
We plan to split Accra into 2 zones, as in Accra West and Accra East. Accra West being Weja, Botiano, Englishi, Amanfo, Anya, Sowotuom, coming down to Ododo, and that area we classify as, we have 14 municipalities in that zone. And then we will do that for 3 weeks. After that, we'll then take the other zone, which is the Accra East zone, which would include Tema, Ningo, Pram, Krowo, Lada Dekotopon, and those areas would also be captured. We hope to do that also in 3 weeks. But the law requires that we advertise the duration of the exercise and the areas we will be registering. Until that happens, I wouldn't want to preempt that discussion now. I know once we publish the exact date and period, I would avail myself if you need me to clarify on those issues. Okay.
So you say that we are still within the schedule. When are we covering the entire country? We're still in the Greater Accra region, correct?
Yes, we're in the Greater Accra region. We hope to complete this whole exercise nationwide by end of this year. So December we should be done.
End of 2019, yes. The entire country?
Yes.
Okay, but if you look at the kind of schedule that you're running now, is this something that can happen? And I'm bringing back all the disappointment from the very beginning of this exercise.
We have 2 very key departments handling what we are doing, the operations department and the biometrics and technology department. We haven't had any indication or signal from them that we cannot accomplish this within our set time. So we'll get it done.
Extensions like you've done with today's with this exercise in Ghana East, does that affect the original budgets that you have for this exercise?
Extension
let's include the delays as well.
I am not in a position to speak to the effect it has on budget. I'm not a finance person, but I think that when budgets are being drawn, you also would factor in unforeseen circumstances, and provisions are made for such things. So I believe we are not out of our budget, so to speak. I'm sure if that is the case, I'll be hearing that at management, and I'll be hearing that in our various meetings. That hasn't come up. So I don't think we are in any way going out of our budget.
So what's been the cause for some people not getting their cards even after they've registered? Because that was the promise. You register, you take your card home right there and then.
That's correct. There are several reasons why an applicant will not get his card instantly. I'll give you a few. One, the system is a security system in the sense that it wants to be sure the applicant is indeed who they claim to be. Now, when anybody who starts the process would have to go through what we call an adjudication process. That adjudication process have two levels: the system adjudication and then the manual adjudication. So there are officials who sit down to check the details of that person registering. Because we have data from 2008 in our system already, anybody who comes to register, the system will either update the record or would pass the record. And if there are significant changes in the record we already have in our system, as against what has been provided, it will go to adjudication. And the officials have to look at that information and be sure there's nothing untoward, and then it is passed on. Sometimes it goes to the system does its own adjudication, and when it holds the card, it takes a bit longer for one to get. There are other cases where somebody may not have received his card, let's say in Adenta. He hears we are in La Quantanine, so he goes to La Quantanine to go and register there. Once his data is already in our system, once he goes to La Quantanine, the system sees him as attempted to register twice, and will freeze the card unless it is released at the back end.
Is that something that people tend to do?
People have tried that, and we have advised them not to try that. Once we are in your area and you've gone for registration, even if you haven't received your card, be patient, because we have records of all those who haven't received their cards, and calls are being made to them and messages are sent to them to come for their cards as soon as it's ready. But adjudication sometimes will delay a card. Some people also want to change their information, so they'll use the vouching for process. So claiming we don't have any documentation. They come and register, their details are already in our system, and the information they provided is different from what's in our system, and it goes to adjudication. There are times when the network fails. We are registering, we are using two networks, MTN and Vodafone. So there are times when you are registering, the network goes down. You move to the other network, it also goes down. So the registration you are doing, you have to do it in the offline mode. So you capture the information, but you have to then send it to the back office where to be processed later. The system also sometimes fails.
Okay.
So these are some of the things that...
if you don't get your card, it
will
could be either of these reasons that you've given.
Yes.
But how soon would you get your card then, after the issues have been resolved?
It's a case-by-case basis. Some people will get their card the next day. I know of some people whose card has been stuck for quite some time. But the assurance is that whatever the issues are, they'll be resolved. If there are issues that border on crime, an attempted registration or falsification of document, or someone who is ineligible to register has tried to register. We've had a few cases like that where foreigners have tried to register, and the system has identified that. Those ones that are genuine, we would surely call them, because we have their phone numbers. We'll call them or send them messages.
It means that they would have to come to your office then for the card?
Yes.
But we know what has happened, so that's come to our office for the card with the earlier registration exercises. No, and the cards were sitting in the office for like forever.
You mean 2008?
Yes.
This is a different situation.
Yeah, because people
Adenta,
didn't find it convenient to go to the head office of the National Identification Authority for their cards, when indeed the registration was done right within their community.
I'll give you an example of what's currently happening. In Adenta, for instance, we have a center. When we left Adenta, we left a center at the NHI office. As we speak, all the cards we send there have been collected. I think the last time I checked, we had about 200 cards left for people to pick up. And that's pretty good, as in people knowing where to go.
So they don't have to come to your head office for it?
No. We actually have a center also in La Quantanine where those who didn't get their cards go there to pick their cards. We'll be leaving a similar center in Ghana East as we move along, depending on the situation in any municipality where we think maybe quite a number of people haven't received their cards yet. We'll create a center for people to go and pick up their cards.
So far, how many people would you say have been registered? And I'm not talking about Ghana East. I'm talking about the entire exercise.
The entire exercise, as at Wednesday when I checked the Ghana East figures, we are now heading for 470,000 registrations done so far.
For the entire region?
For the entire region, okay. 470,000.
How about going to schools and offices? Is that part of the plan? I know that you had some selected offices that you were visiting, but children are in school. In the area where you are covering, children are in school right now. How about going to the institutions?
You recall that in our earlier conversation, we've said that registration now is being done for persons 15 years and above. They are the ones who are issued with the instant card. Those 14 years and below would have the 2D barcodes, and that category we consider most of them to be in school, and the idea is to register them in their various schools. That program has not been properly outlined yet. When that is done, that's the target. We'll go to schools to have them registered and send the cards.
Okay.
Back
My last question: newborns.
Newborns.
Is there a plan for newborns?
We are in the mass registration phase, and registration is open to persons age 0 to infinity. But the current registration we are doing is for persons 15 years and above and those below. I'm sure once we are done with the mass registration essentially is to have a chunk of people in the national database. And when that is done, we have mobile registration equipment going along with us. When that is done, our intention is we are supposed to create district offices. We'll have those offices created with the equipment in those offices registering people, and then have some of them deployed at the major health facilities for newborns to be registered. Okay. So registration is not a one-day event. It will be continuous after we are done with the mass registration.
Just before you go, what can people do with their national identification cards as they have them right now, those who do? The law says that that's the document you need to present when it comes to you identifying yourself. We've heard of people going to the bank, some banks, and the banks refusing them.
They're refusing them.
Yes.
They are not refusing them because they are invalid or they're illegitimate. I've heard some bankers say that they have the software which has in it the EC, the voter ID card, driver's license, and passports in that port. So when people come with those documents, they're able to verify, to check whether the document they want.
But they don't have your data.
They don't have ours in that port.
Why not?
Because the NIA would have its own verification models, and those verification models are directed at the banks and telcos. So we are not in that port yet. Obviously, we have just a wee chunk of the populace in our database. We are still building the database.
So what it means is that you get your card now, but really pretty much it's useless.
It's not useless. I mean, it's a very legitimate card. It's also an ECOWAS travel document. And so it's not just for banking transactions. Where you have to identify yourself, that is the card to present. In fact, if the banks are using even the software as an excuse, it is against the law. The law says that for purpose of identification, the Ghana card is what must be expected.
So what the banks are doing right now is unlawful?
Yes.
What does the authority intend to do about it then?
I think I am aware the authorities in discussions with the Bank of Ghana on that matter, and I'm sure some resolution will be brought to bear.
We'll leave the conversation here, waiting to see the NIA where I live in Kuntunsi. I hope that it will be soon.
It will be soon.
Thank you very much. That's the Head of Public Affairs at the National Identification Authority.